My dad's business went bankrupt. So, he married me off to some rich kid. The rich kid had a first love, the one that got away, and he told me to take the money and enjoy our sexless marriage. Perfect. Once I've saved up enough cash, I'll happily step aside. A year later, he drunk dials me. Still single? Waiting for me? Fine, I'll do you a favor. Let's get remarried. I sound troubled. I'd love to, but I just had a baby. He panicked. I married Felix. No wedding, no dowry. I just signed myself away. On our wedding night, he was out drinking with his friends until after midnight. You're home, I said, scurrying over to help him. His eyes flickered when he saw me. A second later, he leaned in to kiss me. I stiffened but didn't pull away. I even wrapped my arms around his neck, smiling sweetly. Did you transfer the money to my dad? He froze and shoved me away. Chloe, is that all you're worth? I stood there, stung for a moment. But it only lasted a second before I composed myself. I think I'm worth a lot. $3 million. I could never earn that much in my entire life. Fine. Then you can hug your $3 million and be a widow for the rest of your life. He'd lost interest. He yanked off his tie, threw it on the floor, and stalked off to the bathroom. I sighed, picked up the clothes he'd shed on his way, and tossed them in the laundry before heading to my own room to sleep. My dad ran a small company, but it was on the verge of collapse. We sought out Felix because my grandfather had once saved his grandfather's life. His grandfather proposed the marriage, my family was ecstatic, and just like that, I was sold for $3 million. Before all this, I'd heard whispers about Felix. He was the resident bad boy in school, and after graduating, he became a ruthless CEO everyone feared. He had a revolving door of women but never got attached. A true player. When you're married to him, just turn a blind eye. Be a good wife. That was what my mom drilled into me, and I didn't dare forget. So, even though he reeked of a strong perfume when he held me on our wedding night, I didn't say a word. I waited until midnight. He didn't come to my room. I breathed a sigh of relief. A man who's already eaten out probably isn't looking for another meal at home. I pulled out my phone. It was flooded with wedding congratulations. I thought about what had just happened and couldn't help but feel the irony. I scrolled down and saw a familiar name. My heart still ached. You still love me, right? You're not the kind of woman who only cares about money. It was from Ethan. My senior from college, and also my ex-boyfriend. His message was long and childish. I didn't have the patience to read it. I just deleted it and blocked him. The next morning, I made breakfast and waited for Felix to wake up. He didn't roll out of bed until 10. I stood beside him, squeezed toothpaste onto his brush, ran his water, and quietly fixed his hair. He seemed a little dazed, looking at me with a strange expression. What's with the charm offensive so early in the morning? What do you want now? He asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. It didn't matter. I gave him a sweet smile. We have to go to your grandfather's, remember? He shot me a look, his face blank. You're certainly putting in the effort to suck up to the old man. If you wanted, I could suck up to you, too. I took a deep breath, hesitated, then reached out to button his shirt. He stood still, watching me from the corner of his eye. The custom shirt had small buttonholes, and with him staring at me, my hands started to tremble. Could you lean down a little? It's a bit of a reach, I said softly. My nervousness made my voice sound like I was flirting. He leaned down, trapping me in the corner. Do you have any idea what it means to flirt with a man this early in the morning? I don't, I said, playing dumb. He stared at me without speaking, his warm breath so close it felt like it was burning me. Just as I closed my eyes, I heard him say, "You might as well have, 'I want money,' tattooed on your forehead." My heart sank. I felt humiliated, my blood pressure spiking, but I forced it down. So, Are you giving me any? I asked, shamelessly wrapping my arms around his waist. Hubby. His Adam's apple bobbed. He seemed lost in thought for a moment, then pushed me away in disgust. You really think you're made of gold? That I have to pay you every time I touch you? Why don't you try touching me and find out? I said, still smiling. I'd rather not. You're dirty. He seemed bored of the conversation. With a cold snort, he pushed past me and walked out. Watching him leave, the knot in my stomach finally loosened. I understood why Felix hated me. I heard he had a fiancée, but his family broke them up because of me. He left early and came home late every day, never stepping foot in my room. He was certainly holding up his end of the sexless marriage bargain. But that was fine. I was pragmatic about it. You have to grab either love or money in life. Since love was off the table, I was going to focus on making bank. The day he got tired of me and his family finally caved, we'd probably just get a divorce. On our way back from his grandfather's, I saw his ex-fiancée, Lily, before the car even stopped. She was wearing a white dress, standing in the wind as it blew through her long hair. With her red lips and fair skin, she looked absolutely pitiful. Lily. Felix's eyes widened in a panic the moment he saw her. He instantly let go of my arm. The girl looked at me, then at Felix, and her eyes immediately filled with tears. Felix, he doesn't want me anymore. Her words left me stunned. What did she mean, he doesn't want me? I sized up Felix. I couldn't believe the ruthless air of the Smiths was so whipped. Let's go inside. It's windy out here, I said, opening the main door for them. The girl was clearly hostile toward me. No problem. I consciously left the living room for their reunion and went back to my room. I don't know how long they talked. I took a nap, and when I woke up, the living room was empty. The housekeeper told me Felix had carried the girl out. The young lady might have caught a cold and fainted. The young master. Okay, I get it. I didn't eat much that night. I had no appetite. I took out my phone and tried counting the zeros in my bank account, but I felt restless and agitated. That night, Felix didn't come home. I slipped on a pair of heels, a little camisole, and went straight to a bar. My bestie, Wendy, was already waiting for me at the bar. Done playing the part of the prestigious young miss? Came here to drown your sorrows? She teased. Of course not. I'm just tired of smiling all day. Making money is hard work. She burst out laughing and threw her arms around me. You're right. That Felix is hot, but I guess you'd get tired of looking at him every day. Have you been in touch with Ethan? She asked. No, I said, taking a sip of my drink. Weren't you crazy about him? The whole school knew. You finally got together, and now you're married to someone else. I was silent for a moment. His mom came to see me. What? What for? She offered me $500,000 to leave him. Seeing the shock on Wendy's face, I couldn't help but laugh. You've been watching too much TV. She didn't give me a dime. She just said my dad's business was failing and I needed to know my place. She said if people found out about me and Ethan, it would hurt their family's business. What the hell? That's insane. What does your dad's bankruptcy have to do with you dating her son? Wendy fumed on my behalf. It has everything to do with it. Look, besides Felix's family, who's powerful enough to dare marry me? I took another sip of my drink. I blocked him. Let's not talk about it. Fine. No men tonight. Just hot guys. And so my dear friend proceeded to get me the numbers of 10 handsome strangers in the next half hour. Later in the night, I was too drunk to stand. One of the guys called a cab to take me home. I stumbled, fumbling for the light switch. But before I could find it, a voice came from the living room. Having fun? Finally decided to come home? I followed the sound and saw a figure sitting on the sofa in the dark, staring daggers at me. Felix. My heart dropped. I told myself not to panic, but my hands were shaking as I tried to take off my shoes. I was so off balance that when I walked over to apologize, I tripped and fell right into his lap. Whatever image I had carefully crafted of a virtuous, well-bred lady was completely shattered tonight. He looked down at me with disdain. Chloe, when you married me, your father said you were gentle, generous, and a model of virtue. He glanced at his watch. Does a model of virtue go clubbing until 5 a.m? I wanted him to stop talking. What right do you have to judge me? I suddenly burst into tears. You were out with your little damsel in distress until just now, too. He probably wasn't expecting me to cry. He was about to scold me, but he lost his nerve. I decided to commit to the act. I climbed onto his lap and started wailing. Get off me, he hissed. I refused, even wrapping my arms around his neck. Do you know how much it hurts me to watch you dote on her every day? Do you know how scared I am sleeping alone in this huge house every night? He was trapped under me, craning his neck to avoid my mouth, terrified I'd do something even crazier. I think you're the scary one right now, he said, using one hand to block me and the other to restrain my flailing hands. Am I scary? Don't you like me? You really don't like me. I was so into my performance that I had snot running down my face. So, I wiped it all over his shirt. He was a neat freak. His face turned terrifyingly dark. Just then, my phone rang. The ringtone was jarring in the silence. He impatiently grabbed it and answered. Hey, did you make it home? You didn't text back, so I was a little worried. A man's voice echoed in the quiet living room. Felix's expression was as rotten as it could get. It was the guy who drove me home. Damn it. I was truly, completely screwed. Just as Felix looked like he was about to explode. My brain short-circuited. I leaned in and kissed him. He probably didn't see it coming and didn't even have time to push me away. I kissed him desperately, so hard that he eventually gave up resisting. Ow, he said, touching the back of my head as he pushed me away. There was a faint salty taste in my mouth. I think I made him bleed. Go take a shower. He stood up and dragged me to the bathroom. If you ever dare to get this drunk again, I'll... Before he could finish, I threw up all over him. I could tell he was at his wit's end because later, he had the housekeeper throw out all his clothes. He stood at the door, shot me one last look, then shut it with a resigned sigh. I stood alone in the bathroom, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. The next day, I woke up in the afternoon. Felix was already gone. The housekeeper told me the entire liquor cabinet had been cleared out overnight. He was on a business trip for the next few days. I seriously suspected he was avoiding me. What a coward. I didn't stay idle. To maintain constant contact with him, I took his supplementary credit card to the mall to buy purses. Wendy and I linked arms, happily shopping. She was thrilled when I told her about my drunken antics. That was brilliant. A scumbag like that deserves to be puked on. Why didn't you puke in his mouth when you kissed him? Are you disgusting? The kiss was an accident. Thinking back, it was the first time I'd ever made out with a guy so intensely. The memory of him softly saying ow still made my heart flutter. We were laughing and talking as we walked into a luxury boutique, and that's when we saw Lily. Our eyes met, and we both froze. She worked here? She had some grit, I'll give her that. My current role felt a lot like the evil female antagonist who tears apart a pair of star-crossed lovers. I sighed and walked in. Lily approached me. Chloe, you. What kind of bag are you looking for? I'll take a look at whatever you recommend. We seem to have similar taste. I gave her a polite smile. She wrung her hands, looking rather awkward. After a moment, she brought over several bags. As she bent down, her collar gaped open, and I couldn't help but see the hickey on her neck. My heart clenched. A storm was brewing inside me, but I maintained a smile on the outside. Damn it, she had excellent taste. I liked every single bag. This is so hard, I said, trying on each one in front of the mirror. Chloe, if you like them all, you should get them all, the store manager chimed in, showering me with compliments. Exactly, they all look so good on you, another sales assistant added. No, I can't. I have to ask my husband. Things should be practical, not extravagant. With that, I dialed Felix's number in front of everyone. Lily stood to the side, her face growing paler. Hello. Hubby. What stunt are you pulling now? Hubby, I found a few bags I really like, but I can't decide. Do you have time to help me choose? Please. Chloe, I'm in a meeting. Oh, you want me to get them all? That doesn't seem right, but since you said so, I guess I have to. Love you, hubby. I rattled it all off in one breath and hung up before he could curse me out. You can charge this, right? I pulled the card from my purse and handed it to Lily. Why yes. She bit her lip as she took the card to the register. Wendy was stunned by my audacious performance. When did these symptoms start? What symptoms? This shameless showing off and flaunting your relationship. I rolled my eyes. She's Felix's first love, I whispered. See the hickey on her neck? Felix's work. Wendy nearly jumped. And you can tolerate that? What else am I supposed to do? Go full shrew and start a screaming match? That would be beneath me. Wendy and I were about to walk out with our bags. Lily walked us to the door. Chloe, she called out hesitantly. Yes? I stopped. You really don't have to do this. I've never accepted Felix's feelings for me. In an instant, my scalp tingled. My bravado fizzled out. What she meant was, she didn't even have to compete with me. She could do nothing, and Felix would come running to her like a puppy. That's a nice way of putting it. So stay away from someone else's husband. If you're that bored, go get a job at a factory, Wendy shot back. I didn't do anything, Lily said, looking utterly wronged as she ran back inside, crying. Wendy's comeback was great, but I couldn't feel happy at all. That Lily is such a two-faced snake. Are you just going to stand by and watch her take your place? Felix likes her. What can I do? Strike first. Secure your position with a baby. You'll be the queen of the castle. You think this is some kind of royal succession? I said, exasperated. Is your husband out of town? Yeah, how did you know? I overheard the staff saying Lily is taking a few days off to visit her boyfriend. Damn it. Back home, I clenched my fists in frustration. Felix, who hadn't contacted me in days, suddenly called. All right, what was that stunt you pulled earlier today? My heart skipped a beat. Of course, Lily had gone to tattle on me. Was he going to defend her? Nothing. I just miss you when you're not around. There are no clothes to wash, no one to mess up the floor after I mop, no one to eat the breakfast I make. I feel so unaccomplished. And? He was clearly unmoved by my display of affection. And? I had to pull out my trump card. I miss you. He was silent on the other end for a moment before his tone returned to normal. Chloe, don't you blush when you lie? Crap, was it that obvious? Your grandfather said you're too busy and not taking care of yourself, so he told me to come look after you. I tried a different approach. You always use my grandfather as an excuse. Fine, what do you want this time? Weren't the bags you bought today enough? He was so annoying. None of my little schemes ever escaped him. Have your secretary book me a flight. I'm coming to see you. I'm here for work. What are you going to do here? Take care of you, of course. Feeling that wasn't convincing enough, I added, Felix, we haven't seen each other in 360 hours. I started playing the victim card. Whatever it took, I couldn't let Lily win. I had to go and defend my position as his wife. I thought he'd be moved, but he just said coldly, "We were home for a month." Did we even talk? My heart sank, but I knew he was right. We'd been married for 2 months, and we'd barely exchanged a few words. In fact, I hardly ever saw him. A sexless marriage, I get it. Fine, I'm still in a meeting. And then, he mercilessly hung up. That scumbag. Was he really running off to be with his first love? I tried to calm myself down by copying Ode to the Lotus Flower, a classical essay about purity. In the end, I burned the book and booked the first flight out in the morning. When I landed, I first stopped at a cafe and bought a fancy breakfast for him, his secretary, and his assistant. Then, in the taxi, I carefully did my makeup, dabbing on a vibrant orange blush. Wendy texted me, "You really went? To catch him in the act? Please, it's a surprise inspection." I arrived at Felix's hotel room at 8 o'clock sharp, carrying my Hermes bag and wearing 4-inch heels. Just as I raised my hand to knock, I heard a voice from inside. "Felix, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." The voice was familiar. I took a sharp breath. To maintain my composure, I stood outside the door for 5 minutes before finally knocking. "It's me," I announced. Then I waited for the door to open. Felix pulled the door open, looking surprised. "What are you doing here?" I glanced past him and saw the bathrobe he was wearing. Half my fighting spirit evaporated. Then, a figure emerged from behind him, Lily. Even though I'd expected it, the sight still made my heart jolt. I clenched my fists and forced a professional smile. "Hubby, you said you missed me, so I came." I feigned surprise, my gaze sweeping past him. "Oh, you have company. Did I come at a bad time?" Felix didn't say anything, just watched me with an amused expression. It made me feel a little awkward. "Well, you two continue. I'll just sit over here." "I promise I won't disturb you," I said with a smile, walking in. "No, nothing to talk about." "Since you're here, then, I won't disturb you." "I'll get going," Lily stammered, clearly scared and eager to leave. "Wait," I called out to her. She turned pale with fright, standing there trembling, her eyes welling up with tears again. I looked her up and down, then my smile returned. I handed her one of the breakfast bags. "You haven't eaten yet, have you? I got you some, too." She cautiously took the breakfast. She looked terrified. "Thank you. Don't mention it. You call Felix brother, so by rights, you should call me sister-in-law, don't you think?" I said, smiling at her. She glanced at Felix, who still wasn't intervening. She frowned and bit her lip. "Sister-in-law. Good girl," I said, linking my arm with Felix's and burying my head in his chest shyly. "Your brother and I haven't seen each other in a while, and we have some catching up to do, so I won't see you out. Come visit us when you're back in town." Lily didn't say anything. She just grabbed the breakfast and ran off, wiping her tears. After the door closed, Felix looked down at me, his expression unreadable. "Haven't seen each other in a while? Catching up to do?" "Yeah, a lot." "It's a long story," I mumbled, trying to make something up. "Maybe I should invest in a movie and make you the star. You'd win an Oscar for sure." "Oh, shut up." I jumped away from him like he was the plague. "Sure, why not?" I said, wiping my hand with a tissue in disgust. "But as a trophy wife, would it be appropriate for me to be in the spotlight?" He walked over and sat down on the sofa, completely relaxed, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. "You're so addicted to this act, putting on a show of affection wherever you go. It's a waste of your talent. Waste your mom. I'm being sincere. Why do you always misunderstand me, Felix?" I smoothed out my dress, sat down primly across from him, and laid out the breakfast. I even put a straw in his drink. "Eat up, before it gets cold." He didn't move, just kept staring at me. I avoided his gaze. After a while, his secretary and assistant called. He answered the phone, but his eyes never left me. I overheard bits and pieces and knew he had a busy day ahead. So, I dutifully went to the bedroom, picked out a shirt and suit for him, and laid them out. "How about this black plaid tie?" He said, glancing at me lazily. "It's 8:30. Your meeting is at 9, right? Get up and get changed." When he didn't move, I went over to hurry him along. He looked at me and lazily held out his hand, asking me to pull him up. My first instinct was to slap his hand away, but my good manners wouldn't allow it. I reached out to pull him, but he didn't budge. Then, with a gentle tug, I stumbled and fell into his lap. Trying to steady myself, my hand slipped inside his robe. I froze. "Is this why you came rushing all this way to find me?" he asked, amused by my wandering hand. Seeing his mocking expression, my fighting spirit ignited. "So what if I touch you?" "It's perfectly legal," I said, deliberately moving my hand. He probably didn't expect me to be so shameless. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. His peach blossom eyes just stared at me, a flicker of distraction in them. "Honestly, you should work on your abs. They're just okay, a little soft." I was about to get up. He glanced at me, not angry at all, but smiling. "Then feel a little lower." I shot up in a second, my face instantly turning red. This damn man. "Hurry up, you're going to be late," I said, admitting to myself that I was a little flustered. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. He didn't tease me anymore and started to get dressed. I stood behind him, helping him, my eyes scanning every inch of his back. There were no marks from any woman. I was surprised, and also a little happy. "Are your eyes glued to me?" He looked down at me with a smile. I snapped out of it and went back to tying his tie. "I'm just worried about certain people draping themselves all over you." Thinking of the hickey on Lily's neck that day made me feel annoyed, so I let out a little complaint. But he grabbed my hand and said in a low voice, "Nonsense." "Then just assume I'm talking nonsense. But some people show up in your room first thing in the morning with other ideas." He froze for a second. He probably understood what I was talking about. He must have felt guilty. "Lily?" he asked. Stating the obvious. "Who knows?" I replied sourly. "She's my brother's girlfriend," he said, letting go of my hand and tying his own tie. He seemed a little down. "What are you getting jealous about?" "His brother's girlfriend?" I misunderstood. But was it really a misunderstanding? Why did he seem so out of sorts? I wanted to ask more, but he had a meeting soon, and I figured he wouldn't answer anyway. I held back to avoid embarrassing myself. "What time will you be back tonight?" I asked as I walked him to the door. "Why do you ask?" "I'm all alone. I'll be bored." He stared at me without speaking, then sighed. "That's why I told you not to come. What did you come here for?" If I hadn't come, that little snake would have been in his bed by tonight. In less than a month, I'd be back at the courthouse, trading my marriage certificate for divorce papers. "I missed you." "I'll wait for you to come back," I said, pulling on his shoulder and standing on my tiptoes to plant a kiss on his cheek. He stood there frozen, staring at me, lost in thought. Just as I was about to pull away, his arm tightened around my waist. He bent down and kissed me. The unexpected kiss stunned me. My heart started racing, my mind went blank. He even gave my waist a playful squeeze. "You have to commit to the act. A half-hearted performance like that isn't worth you coming all this way." With that, he and his assistant left, leaving me standing there in a daze. That damn man. But why did I feel a little, like I wanted more? I slapped my face, trying to snap out of it. After he left, I sat alone in the hotel room and looked at the message on my phone again. "Chloe, if you divorce Felix now, you'll only get a few $100,000. Because you've only been married for 2 months, and Felix had a prenuptial agreement notarized." I stared at the text from the lawyer, my mind reeling. I had consulted him during those 5 minutes I was standing outside the door. If I divorce Felix now, how much will I get? While he and Lily were cooing at each other inside, I was preparing for the worst. But only a few $100,000? Why? I texted back, so how can I get more? Purchasing real estate, property, and other assets during the marriage. These are considered joint marital property and you would get half in a divorce. Or, you could have a child. I was truly desperate. Since marrying Felix, I'd only bought some clothes and bags. How much could that be worth? Wendy called to ask how the battle was going. I felt like a deflated balloon. Don't even ask. Did they really do it? I don't know. I told Wendy what Felix had said about Lily being his brother's girlfriend. We spent half an hour analyzing the situation and finally figured it out. So, Lily is the daughter of their housekeeper. The three of them grew up together. Lily liked the mature, stable older brother, Andrew. Felix liked Lily, so Lily kept Felix as a backup. Oh my God, so the great Felix is just a lovesick puppy. Chloe, you're the Mary Sue chosen by fate to redeem this bad boy. Trashy CEO romance novels have taken over your brain, I said, rolling my eyes at her. No, really. Felix's character is so compelling. School bad boy, tough guy, ruthless businessman. But secretly a devoted, lovesick puppy? That's my kryptonite. And so? Tell me, what usually happens next in a Mary Sue novel? I asked, amused. You become his devoted follower, at the bottom of the food chain, the one who gives everything silently. Then, he stays celibate for his first love, never touching you. You live like a nun for 1,000 years, finally can't take it anymore and get a divorce. Then he finally gets his happy ending with a heartbroken Lily, and they raise her and his brother's kid together. My vision went dark. That's beyond melodramatic. But it was true. In 2 months of marriage, Felix had never touched me. We'd only kissed once or twice. It was eerily similar to a novel. That night, Felix came back late. I hadn't slept, just sat in the living room waiting for him. Still up? He asked, pulling off his tie and shrugging off his jacket. He didn't seem to be in a good mood. I gathered my energy, walked over, and took his jacket. Tough day. He ignored me and went to the coffee table to pour himself some water. I quickly went over and poured a glass for him. He looked at me strangely. Want me to give you a shoulder rub? I'm pretty good at it. He sat on the sofa and glanced at me. Chloe, I'm exhausted. There's no one else here. Stop acting. I'm just doing my wifely duties. Can't you just enjoy it? I shot him an annoyed look and started massaging his shoulders. How do you want me to enjoy it? He asked, a wicked smile playing on his tired face. I froze. I was actually weighing my options. Didn't you have your secretary get you another room? He asked, changing the subject. Wouldn't 2 rooms be a waste? I forced a smile. He didn't say anything, just smirked. Later, getting ready for bed, everything felt so natural. We ended up lying in bed together. He made no move, and in fact, seemed to be drifting off to sleep. I felt a serious blow to my ego. Here I was, a beautiful woman lying next to him, and he was completely indifferent, even playing dead? Damn it. He was clearly still hung up on someone else, willing to stay celibate for his first love. Why should he get his way? I wouldn't let him. Besides, he was good-looking, had a great body, and enjoying him was my legal right. I rolled over, snuggled up to him, and whispered, Felix. His voice sounded drowsy. Wanna make out? I asked. He paused, then finally opened his eyes. His peach blossom eyes stared at me in the dark. What are you up to now? Your grandpa said he wants a great-grandchild, I said, completely justified. He continued to stare at me. After a long moment, he said, not tonight. He rejected me. No matter how thick my skin was, I felt a little embarrassed. Fine, I'll ask again tomorrow, I said, quickly turning away, pretending nothing had happened. In reality, I was grinding my teeth. I was so pathetic. I got married, couldn't get much money out of it, and had to live a celibate life. I tried to find some extra fun for myself and got rejected. We were both adults. I wasn't some innocent, chaste little fairy. And honestly, I had lied earlier today. His abs felt really good. I'm a sinner. Come here, he suddenly sighed, pulling me toward him. What for? Don't mess with me. He just shot me down. We were enemies now. It's midnight. I have to be up at 6 for a meeting, he said, looking at me seriously. And? You want me to get up and buy you breakfast? See? I was so pathetic. No money, and I still had to maintain the image of a good wife and be his little servant. Who asked you to buy breakfast? He said, annoyed. I'm just reminding you, if you want to do this, we need to hurry up. I was stunned. I didn't know what to do next. Work all day, overtime at night. I owe you, he grumbled, starting to unbutton his shirt. Why did it feel like the roles were reversed? This wasn't how it happened in the novels. You don't have to unbutton it, I whispered. Chloe, what's your hurry? I was so embarrassed I could have died. Thank God the lights were off. What was all the talk for? I leaned in and kissed him. Wait, he stopped me. What is it? He was so high maintenance. I need to call my assistant to buy something. I froze. Wouldn't the whole world know then? Don't worry about it, I'm fine, I promised confidently. He sighed. It's not good for you. So fussy. I just kissed him again. In the middle of it, he told me to hold on. I nodded eagerly. I'm really okay. I'm fine. In the end, I kicked him out of bed. I'm seriously tired. He went to sleep on the sofa. The next morning, he held me, kissing my hair, uncharacteristically gentle. Honey, I cooed, wrapping my arms around his neck. The beach house is so far from the city. It's inconvenient for shopping. And? He asked, looking down at me. I think that new townhouse in the historic district is nice. White walls, brick facade, a private courtyard, it really suits your status, I said, tracing circles on his chest, my voice sweet. Oh, really? Should I buy one for you, then? He asked with a smile. Oh, a place that big must be so expensive, I couldn't possibly, I was secretly thrilled. So, Chloe, you flew all this way to sleep with me, whispering sweet nothings, just for this? He suddenly snapped. He threw off the covers, got out of bed, and started getting ready, all in one smooth motion. Of course not. I swear. Believe me. I spouted the 3 classic denials. What do you take me for? I work my ass off all night just to be your tool. When he was tying his tie, I suspected he wanted to use it to strangle me. Why was he so angry? I was the one who should be angry. Felix, let's be clear. Who was the one getting tossed around all night? I was the real victim here. I feel disgusted. He threw that line at me, grabbed his jacket, and walked out, leaving me with nothing but his cold back. I sat there, completely stunned. I sat in the hotel for 2 hours, trying to figure out how things had gone so wrong. A house was nothing to him. Was he really that stingy? He had no compassion at all, just leaving me like that. Of course, the rich are always the stingiest. Later, I texted him, but he didn't reply. When I called, he was either in a meeting or busy. He was clearly avoiding me. Hit it and quit it? My plan had failed again. I really felt like I'd sold myself short, with nothing to show for it. When I finally got a hold of him, I asked, "Hubby, want to get dinner together?" His voice was impatient. Chloe, next time you want something, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. I was furious. Being treated like this was a horrible feeling. I did say it. Are you going to buy it for me? That place costs $10 million, he said after a slight pause. Do you really think you're worth that much? I was speechless. The conversation did not go well. I hung up. Staying at the hotel was pointless. To hell with it all. I was done. Life wasn't worth it. I took Felix's credit card and booked myself the most luxurious first-class flight back home. That evening, he finally texted me, "Didn't you say you wanted to have dinner? Where are you?" I looked at the text and scoffed. Did he just get over his post-nut clarity and remember me? I'm back home. He paused for a second, his tone cold. Chloe, I'm a very busy man. I rarely make time to have dinner with you. Don't play games with me. I was playing games with him? Telling the truth was playing games? Sure, hubby, how about a virtual dinner? I started a video call with him. I put our family's poodle in front of the camera, letting his own kind keep him company. Chloe, what the hell is your problem? He exploded with rage. Hubby, don't get angry. Anger is bad for your liver, and a bad liver leads to an early death. How am I supposed to spend all your money by myself? I'm so anxious. Are you planning on being this passive-aggressive from now on? Don't you like it, hubby? I can be a mute from now on. He never replied. Thus began our 2-week-long Cold War. I went shopping and ate whatever I wanted every day. I couldn't be bothered with him. He was supposed to go to another city and not be back for about a month. But then he suddenly returned. When he came back, I was at a class reunion with my friends. He called me. We need to talk. Can you call me back at 10 tomorrow morning? I'm really tired. So tired your social media location is a karaoke bar? A jolt went through me. I quickly hung up, remembered my post, and immediately deleted the photo. Wendy saw my panicked expression. What's wrong? He's back. He saw I was at a KTV this late. My good wife image is ruined again, I said, sipping my orange juice glumly. Why are you so scared of him now? You don't even drink anymore. You've gotten so well behaved, Wendy teased. Who's scared of him? I'm just feeling hopeless about my marriage. At the reunion, everyone was envious that I'd married into a wealthy family. Even my old teachers looked at me differently. My phone was blowing up with contact requests. But none of them knew the struggles of being a trophy wife. Well, you two are married. You should have a serious talk with him. He's in love with that other girl, not me. How can I talk to him? I have no leverage. True, Wendy glanced at me. So when you went to see him, did anything happen? At the mention of that, my confidence vanished. Don't even ask. What? Before I met him, I thought I was a master of self-control. And then? Wendy's interest was piqued. I really can't control myself, I sighed. Think about it. A gorgeous man, lying in front of you, almost asleep, completely defenseless, with a great body, you know, it's just so. Wendy spat out the drink she just sipped, laughing so hard she was doubled over. I watched her with a deadpan expression. Was it that funny? When she finally caught her breath, she gave me a sly wink. So, how was it? Not great. Don't even try it. The romance novels are all lies, I said, making a gesture with my hands and shaking my head. She instantly understood my body language, her eyes wide with shock. No way. Maybe he's just not very good at it. It was a waste of his good looks. Seriously? I've heard that, practice makes perfect. I was speechless. How could she say that out loud? It was so embarrassing. Just then, a familiar voice came from above. Chloe. I looked up and saw my ghost of a boyfriend past, Ethan. My heart sank. It had only been 3 months, but he looked so thin and worn out. Ethan, Wendy said, also stunned. Can I talk to Chloe alone for a minute? Sure. Wendy gave me a good luck with that look and vanished. Ethan sat down in front of me, his eyes full of emotion. Long time no see, he said, his eyes already turning red. Seeing him like this, I still felt a pang of sympathy. What are you doing here? Are you doing okay? We both spoke at the same time. The atmosphere became even more awkward. I'm doing great, I said with a smile. What did you want to say? I watched him quietly. My mom came to see you, didn't she? He asked, getting straight to the point. His voice was filled with sadness. Yes, I answered honestly. Is that why you broke up with me? Partly, but not entirely. He stood there and took a deep breath. You know, at first, I thought you were just messing with me. But then you stopped being dramatic and just quietly blocked me. That's when I knew you were serious about breaking up. I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until later that I found out my mom had seen you. She told you to leave me, didn't she? It's my fault. It's all my fault for not protecting you. He talked himself into tears. A 6-foot-tall guy, standing in front of me, crying like a baby. Seeing him like this, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't sad. After all, I had once loved him. It's all in the past, I said, handing him a tissue from my purse. Other than that, I didn't know what else to do. I remember when we broke up, his mom told me, Chloe, a girl from a family like yours will never marry into a family like ours. Ethan spent a lot of money on you while you were dating, you should be grateful. If you want to be his mistress on the side, where no one knows about you, I can turn a blind eye. But don't even think about marrying into my family. It was the most humiliating experience of my life. I cried all night. I texted him, asking, what would you do if your mom didn't want us to be together? He replied, I don't know. At that moment, I thought, why would I marry someone like that? Was I looking for trouble? If I can convince my mom, can we get back together? He suddenly asked. I was stunned. It was hilarious. So hilarious that tears started to well up in my eyes. Ethan, I'm married, I said, flashing my ring. But you don't love him. He fell apart when he saw my ring. You can fool everyone else, but you can't fool me. You don't love him. So what? I said with a smile. I didn't love Felix, and Felix didn't love me. I thought that was fair. I had loved Ethan, and what did I get in return? His mother's humiliation and his own weakness in the face of his family. Marrying Felix at least got me money. You can't be that greedy. Divorce him. Let's get back together, please. He grabbed my hand, pleading with me. I felt a headache coming on. How could someone be so childish? Sure. Go tell your mom to give me half of her company's shares, okay? I asked with a smile. He looked at me in shock, staring for a full minute. Chloe, I don't have a say in the shares, and my mom would never. Can you ask for something else? I took a deep breath. So, Ethan, you claim to love me. What do you love me with? Just your words? Unfortunately, I'm past the age of believing in love through words alone. I pulled my hand away and was about to leave when he hugged me from behind. I love you. Please don't go. The next second, the door was pushed open. In the dim light, Felix stood motionless, his expression unreadable. Am I interrupting something? My heart sank. Felix's disappointment was written all over his face. I'm just here to remind you that I won't be back for a month. You can have a nice, long reunion with your old flame. He threw those words at me and turned to leave. It seemed he'd misunderstood. I felt a surge of panic, but on the surface, I calmly told Ethan to let go. Let go. No. Seeing Felix about to walk away, I didn't care anymore. I kicked Ethan off me and chased after him. He was walking fast. By the time I got out, he was already in the elevator heading down to the garage. I frantically pressed the button for the other elevator, but of course, it went up, floor by floor, before slowly heading down, with people getting on and off at every stop. By the time I got to the garage, 10 minutes had passed. Defeated, I started calling him. He didn't pick up. He was definitely angry. After a few tries, I was about to hang up when I faintly heard a ringtone in the garage. I followed the sound and found Felix's car. The lights were off. He was sitting alone in the back seat, looking gloomy. When I saw him, he looked up and saw me too. My emotions were a mess. I ran over. "Waiting for me?" I asked, pulling open the car door and getting in. He didn't speak, just shifted slightly to the other side and turned his face to the window, ignoring me. The driver started the car and slowly headed home. On the way, no matter what I said, he ignored me. "Why are you home early? Are you done with work?" He ignored me. "You must be tired. I can give you a massage when we get home." He ignored me. "By the way, you called and said you wanted to talk. What about?" He still ignored me. "Felix, I'm cold," I said, trying to sound cute. He didn't turn around, just rolled up his window a little more. "Felix, I want your jacket," I said, gently tugging on his sleeve. "Forget it," he finally spat out. "I'll catch a cold," I said pitifully. He had clearly lost his patience. "Driver, turn up the heat." TCH, cold-hearted. The whole ride was like that. I ran out of patience to coax him. Back home, he went straight to his room. I was about to follow him in, but he turned and snapped, "Get out." "We're married," I protested. "When you were cuddling with your lover boy, did you remember we were married then?" He shot back. "You're a smart guy. Can't you see it was a misunderstanding?" I was speechless. Felix couldn't be that stupid, right? A misunderstanding? He threw his jacket down. "He said he loved you, that he wanted you to divorce me and get back with him. I'm not deaf. He was holding you, and you didn't push him away. You're telling me that's a misunderstanding? What's next? If I'd been a little later and he was taking your clothes off, would you still tell me it was a misunderstanding?" He was completely enraged, pinning me against the wall, holding my hands above my head, and kissing me. It was so fierce I could barely breathe. He was insane. I struggled to push him away, but I couldn't. Finally, I bit him. The pain must have registered, because he finally let me go. "What about you and Lily?" I asked with a smirk. "What if she asked you to divorce me? What would you do?" He froze for a moment, then said dejectedly, "She's different." "Oh? How is she different?" "I never dated her." "You never dated her, or you wanted to but never got the chance?" He didn't answer, just stared at me intently. After a moment, he let me go. "Can you stop being so unreasonable? You're the one who wanted this marriage, and you're the one who wanted to sleep with me. Now he was the victim? Get lost, you scumbag." "Well, I don't feel like sleeping with you anymore," I shot back, turning and storming back to my own room. Felix and I began another long Cold War. We slept in separate rooms, staying out of each other's way. I don't know why, but before, when he ignored me, I could handle it just fine. But after this incident, just being in the same space with him felt suffocating. So, I made an excuse to go stay with his grandfather and ended up living there. Maybe it was because of our fight, but I've had no appetite lately, and my chest feels tight. He was on a business trip for a month. We didn't see each other once, and only spoke on the phone once or twice. One day, he called his grandfather while I happened to be there. His grandpa happily told me to say a few words. To be honest, I was mortified. Ran off to Grandpa's place? After a month, his voice sounded unfamiliar. "I'm coming back next week." "Oh. You're not coming home?" he asked. Grandpa gets too lonely if I leave. He can't live without me now, I said, making an excuse to avoid going back. What was the point of going back? He ignored me, he wasn't there, and I was bored out of my mind alone in that villa. Why are you always bothering the old man? You want me to bother you instead? I retorted. He fell silent, then sighed. I'm hanging up. Lately, he'd been calling his grandfather way too often. And coincidentally, every time he called, I was playing chess with Grandpa. What kind of lousy move was that? Grandpa scolded him over the phone while playing chess with me. You come home once or twice a month. You might as well not come back at all. Just stay out there forever. I'll just pretend I don't have a grandson. Busy? What are you so busy with? Are you short on money or short on brains? Why don't you just hug your money and be a bachelor for the rest of your life? His grandfather ripped into him. After hanging up, Grandpa looked at me with a grin. Chloe, don't you worry. If that brat dares to bully you, Grandpa will break his legs. How could I tell him I was hiding here to avoid Felix? The next day, I was playing chess with Grandpa again. What did I know about chess? I was just trying to keep the old man happy. Just as I was about to lose spectacularly. Grandpa, can I take back my move? I asked meekly. Grandpa held my piece down. Absolutely not. There are no take-backs in life. I sighed. Grandpa was right. Felix, what are you doing back? I exclaimed, my eyes wide. Grandpa turned to look. Seizing the opportunity, I swapped a piece in a flash. By the time Grandpa realized I'd tricked him, I had single-handedly turned the tide of the game. Where is he? Grandpa asked when he didn't see anyone. Oh, I must have been thinking about him too much. My eyes were playing tricks on me, I said, sticking out my tongue, feigning lovesickness. I remember just now, Grandpa adjusted his reading glasses, staring at the board in disbelief. The board didn't look like this. This white piece wasn't here, and this black piece wasn't here either. Am I misremembering? Maybe you're just misremembering. I giggled to myself. I'm getting old and forgetful. It's your turn. Go ahead. Okay, Grandpa, I said happily, placing a white piece. You. Come here, a voice said from above. My heart skipped a beat. Felix. I looked up and saw him standing behind me in a suit. It looked like he had just gotten back from his trip and hadn't even had time to change. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was struck by how handsome he was. My heart clenched. I'm playing chess, I said, feigning nonchalance. Didn't you say you missed me so much? He asked, his eyes lowered, his expression unreadable. Come here. You brat, who are you bossing around? You just got back and you're already ordering your wife around? Grandpa was having none of it and shot Felix a glare. Old man, you do realize she's my wife, Felix said, unfazed, bending down to take my hand. Grandpa, he must have missed me a lot. I'll be back to play with you later, I said with a smile, trying to smooth things over. Grandpa's face lit up with a satisfied smile. Felix pulled me all the way to a corner of the garden before finally letting go of my hand. You dare to cheat at chess with my grandpa? I felt a pang of guilt, my voice losing its confidence. I don't know how to play. I was just trying to make your grandpa happy. He snorted. You certainly spare no effort when it comes to sucking up to elders. If there's nothing else, I'm going back, I said, refusing to give him a pleasant expression. Just as I was about to leave, he grabbed my hand. He pulled me close. Didn't you say you missed me? That you had Grandpa call me all the way back here? It wouldn't be right if I didn't let you take advantage of me. It's broad daylight. What do you think you're doing? I struggled to back away. He followed me, pinning me against the rose bush. The thorns pricked my back. I had nowhere to go. You should be asking yourself what you want to do to me, he said, wrapping his arm around my waist to shield me from the thorns, a wicked smile on his face. I don't want to do anything, I said, drooling as I refused. At such a close distance, my heart was pounding like crazy. You weren't so cold that night you were taking advantage of me, he whispered with a low chuckle. You. I was at a loss for words, so nervous I couldn't speak. Someone's here. I tried to push him away. He completely ignored the gardener, Mr. Wang, walking by, simply turning his body slightly to block my face. You're back. Mr. Wang greeted him. Yeah, Mr. Wang. Watering the plants? He replied casually. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Okay. I saw the look Mr. Wang gave me and wanted to die of embarrassment, but Felix just stood there, shameless, with his arm around me. What are you afraid of? Aren't you always trying to show off our happy marriage? I'm giving you a chance, and now you're scared? He asked, amused. I'm not scared of anything, I retorted, refusing to back down. I'm not like some people who spend all night asking if doing that is bad for their health. He froze, the tips of his ears turning red. Chloe, that was my first time, he said, annoyed. How long are you going to mock me for it? I quickly pushed him away and created some distance. I wasn't mocking you. I was just stating a fact. With that, I turned to go back to the room, but he followed me in. I sat on the sofa playing on my phone while he casually picked up a book to read. We didn't disturb each other. This was his childhood room. I had been staying in it since I came to his grandfather's. But I wasn't the type to snoop, and I didn't like to read. I hadn't touched any of his things. Can't you go read somewhere else? I asked, exasperated. With him here, I even felt nervous playing on my phone. He didn't look up, just said lightly, this is my room. It's your room, but don't you think it's a little suspicious for us to be in here together all day? People might get the wrong idea. The wrong idea about what? He picked up another book and continued reading. Dressed in casual clothes, he looked incredibly relaxed. What do you think they get the wrong idea about? I was speechless. I could occasionally hear his grandfather and others talking outside. I held my breath, afraid to make a sound, worried people would misunderstand. But he seemed to be hoping they would. He finally put down his book and looked at me, staring for a full 30 seconds. Still not talking. Fine. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. I grabbed my phone and decided to leave. But as I walked past him, I tripped and fell right on top of him. His face contorted in pain. Are you trying to make that wrong idea a reality? I immediately sprang off him. I slipped. I explained. Did you slip, or do you have the desire but not the guts? He shook his head and went back to his book. I just got back. I'm tired. Later. I was going to lose my mind. Did he really think I was some kind of pervert? Was I that kind of person? I tried to think of a comeback. In romance novels, the main characters go at it for 3 days and 3 nights. You might want to get that checked out. I said it with my head held high, turned to leave, and he grabbed my hand. The next second, I was sitting in his lap again. Just as I was about to speak. Don't try to provoke me. It won't work, he said, his peach blossom eyes locked on mine. I looked at his lips, so close, and only 4 words came to mind, dangerously, devastatingly handsome. Then, as if possessed, I leaned up and pecked him on the lips. How about this? I asked with a smile. He froze, a mist slowly forming in his eyes. What do you really want? He asked, turning his face away. So cold? Forget it. What could I want? It's broad daylight, I said, standing up to leave. He looked up at me. Chloe, do you really think I don't have the strength? Don't worry, I have more than enough to handle you. I believe you, I really do, I said, not wanting to argue. You're really asking for it, he threw the book down. The next second, a shadow fell over me. He was kissing me. My brain short-circuited. After a few seconds, he pulled away and smiled at me. So, want to continue? A frantic heartbeat echoed in my chest, driving me crazy. And no. I tried to escape. I'd gone too far this time. Liar, he said, kissing me again. Just as my mind was a chaotic mess, I heard a sound. The door was pushed open. Auntie, where's the Spider-Man you bought me? A little boy chirped, running in and about to jump into my arms. He saw me and Felix kissing, stared at me with wide eyes, then at Felix, a thoughtful look on his face. It was Leo, Felix's cousin's son. Felix and I instantly sprang apart. Leo, go check the sofa downstairs. It should be there, I said, trying to catch my breath and maintain a smile. Oh, Leo said, looking at Felix. Uncle, are you guys fighting? Don't bully Auntie. No, Felix said, a little exasperated. You, go on now. Oh. Leo trudged out, a look of confusion on his face. At dinner, Grandpa was scolding Felix for never coming home. I kept my head down, listening to him get chewed out, and secretly enjoyed it. Grandpa, a man's career is the most important thing. Felix works hard to provide for the family. I spoke up for him. The family was full of praise for me. It's only because Chloe has such a good personality. What other high society girl would put up with this? Exactly. Chloe is so well-mannered and filial, always coming back to be with the elders. Not like Felix. Felix just smirked the whole time. I suspected he wasn't even listening. Because every little move I made, he was watching me. I wanted to get some noodles, and he'd use a fork to twirl them up and place them next to my hand. I wanted to eat lobster, and he'd slowly peel it and put it in my bowl. I wanted to wipe my mouth, and he'd already have a napkin ready for me. Until... No wonder it's been 3 months and Chloe's still not pregnant. How can she be when he's never home? Felix's expression finally changed a little. We've only been married for 3 months. Don't rush us, he said with a sigh. But then Leo, who had been eating quietly, piped up. Mommy, you said you can only kiss kids on the cheek, but I saw Auntie and Uncle kissing on the mouth. I nearly spat out my food. A dozen pairs of eyes at the table turned to stare at me and Felix. The atmosphere was excruciatingly awkward. I snuck a glance at Felix, but he seemed perfectly calm, just smiling helplessly. Kids, don't talk nonsense. Eat your food, an adult quickly hushed him. I'm not talking nonsense. Auntie was sitting on Uncle's lap, and Uncle, Leo was cut off before he could finish, his mouth covered in thyme. My face turned beet red, all the way to my ears. This was mortifying. They're newlyweds, it's understandable, someone said, trying to ease the tension. That just made it worse. I buried my head in my food. My phone suddenly buzzed. Felix, don't eat the cilantro. Felix, I don't like the smell. Me, what does that have to do with me? Felix, don't eat it if you want to come to my room tonight. He was being ridiculous. I refused. Cilantro was my favorite. Who cared about going to his room? I deliberately piled on a lot of cilantro, but he just took the whole plate away. You. I glared at him. Not wanting to start a fight in front of his family, I just smiled and endured it. After dinner, it was a given that Felix and I would share a room. He tried to go to the guest room, but his grandfather yelled at him until he came back. So there we were, staring at each other in the room, the awkwardness palpable. You're not going to defy your grandfather? I asked, a little annoyed. Nope. He's fierce, you saw, he said, looking like he was being forced into this. So how are we going to sleep tonight? The memory of what happened at the hotel, how he tormented me. It left a mark. Especially how he was so cold and sarcastic to me the next morning. I never wanted to go through that again. Tonight, I had to control myself. No more thankless efforts. You sleep on the sofa, I'll take the bed, he said, grabbing his clothes. Why? Because this is my room, he said, gesturing around. And the sofa's too short for me. Are you even a man? Making me sleep on the sofa while he took the bed? He smiled at me. You know very well whether I am or not. Jerk. I grabbed my clothes and went into the bathroom. After my shower, I was lying on the sofa when I suddenly felt a wave of nausea and rushed to the bathroom to throw up. Felix was still showering inside. I couldn't wait. I pounded on the door. Open up, open the door. What's wrong? I'm going to be sick. Just open the door. I covered my mouth, my words muffled. Chloe, I'm in the shower. Can you not do this right now? I'm not trying to see you. I really feel sick. Are you sure? You want to come in now? Yes. The door opened. I rushed to the sink and started retching. But after a minute of heaving, nothing came out but saliva. I looked up and saw Felix standing behind me, wrapped in a towel, his hair full of foam, giving me a knowing look. I'm not lying. I really felt sick just now. Uh-huh. And? He clearly didn't believe me, and I clearly couldn't explain. This was just bizarre. Never mind, you continue, I said, my face red as I walked out, consciously pulling the door shut behind me. I stood outside for a few seconds, then another wave of nausea hit me, and I started pounding on the door again. This time, he opened it instantly. Come on in. He calmly went back to washing his hair, as if he'd given up fighting. I was a little embarrassed because the feeling had passed again. Does it only happen when you're outside? Then just stay in here. Don't leave. My heart skipped a beat. That was a good idea. It was just going to cost me a lot of nosebleeds. A few minutes later, maybe because of the steam, my nose started bleeding. I fumbled around, trying to stop it. Tilt your head back, Felix said, walking over and gently holding my head. He then soaked a towel in cold water and placed it on the back of my neck. Don't move. He was still completely calm. But I just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. This was so embarrassing. Has this happened before? He asked while helping me stop the bleeding. Huh? What? Getting a nosebleed from seeing a handsome guy. My face turned crimson. And no. It's probably from eating too many chips today. I'm just overheated, I explained. He looked down at me. Overheated? Need my help with that? No, thank you. I covered my nose and ran out. Suddenly, I felt my body lift off the ground as he swept me up in his arms. Don't sleep on the sofa. He placed me on the edge of the bed. Then he finished getting ready and lay down next to me. I was tense, my heart pounding. What happened next was natural. He held my face gently, his expression full of devotion as he kissed me. I didn't resist. When are we going home? He whispered in the middle of a kiss. Huh? You're never home anyway. What's the point of me going back? I complained. This is my grandfather's house, he said, pausing to look at me. Are you planning to live here forever? It's nice here. I have people to hang out with, and the mall is just a block away. It's convenient for shopping. The most important thing was that Felix's grandfather really liked me, and I was happy here. He stared at me without speaking, then finally sighed and lowered his voice. It's not convenient here. What's not convenient? I think life is very convenient here. He looked at me, a you-know-what-I-mean expression on his face. With kids liable to burst in at any moment, you think this is a good idea? I suddenly realized what he was talking about. A rush of heat went to my head, and I couldn't say a word. He ended up just holding me and kissing my forehead. Let's go home tomorrow, okay? He coaxed. I was so dazed from his kisses that I was about to agree. Then his phone rang. He didn't want to answer it, but after glancing at the screen, he picked it up. What's wrong? It's late. If you're drunk, have someone take you home. Don't do anything stupid. Listening to his conversation, I had a pretty good idea who it was. My heart sank. It was Lily. After he hung up, he looked at me, a little distracted. Aren't you going? I asked. From the call, I could piece together the situation. Lily was at a bar, drunk, couldn't get home, and wanted him to pick her up. No. He had lost his mood. He pulled away from me and lay there, lost in thought. What if something happens to her? I asked again. She brought it on herself, he sighed. I can't look after her for the rest of her life. Talking about another woman with my husband was really awkward. I hesitated, wondering how to continue the conversation. Do you really like her that much? I asked. I'd heard about him and Lily before. They said Felix had been in love with Lily for years. If it weren't for our marriage, they probably would have had kids by now. He turned his face to look at me, then got out of bed and went to the balcony to smoke. Not really, he said, a hint of helplessness in his voice. My heart sank. He continued, Chloe, you can't expect me not to have liked someone before you. It's not something I could control. I met her first, after all. And then? Why didn't you get together before? I stood there, frozen, feeling like I was the other woman, the one who had torn them apart. We grew up together, went to school together every day. She chased me, asked me to be her boyfriend. We dated for a week, then she dumped me. She said she only liked me because I looked a lot like my brother, but she couldn't lie to herself anymore. Isn't that ridiculous? Are all women like that? Once you get what you want, you become reckless? You're like that too. He laughed at himself. How did this get turned on me? I haven't done anything to wrong you. You haven't? The moment we're done, your face changes. You're asking for bags or houses, and if I don't buy them, you ignore me. You think you're any better? I was shocked. In his eyes, I was the bad guy. After a long pause, I finally said, so what about now? Do you still like her? If he still liked her, I could turn a blind eye. If it came down to it, I would step aside. No. I'm tired. When he said he was tired, I saw the disappointment in his eyes. Later, he told me a lot about his childhood. Most of the time, I was the one asking questions, and his answers were brief. Let's not talk about her. Does it hurt? He lowered his gaze to me. I'm afraid it'll hurt you. I don't care, really. You don't feel anything? You don't get jealous? He asked, confused. Why would I be jealous? I asked back. I don't know what I said to set him off, but he started giving me the cold shoulder again. Right. In your mind, there's nothing but money. Why are we back on this again? I was truly speechless. Weren't we just talking about him and Lily? I was even about to offer some guidance. And suddenly, the gun was pointed at me. Do you love money that much? He asked. Who doesn't love money? I asked back with a smile. His face tensed, looking even worse. Then why didn't you marry the richest man in the world? He has more money than me. Felix, you're being completely unreasonable, I thought for a second. I don't know him, do I? So it's just because you didn't have the chance, he snorted. Okay, let's stop talking about this. I couldn't understand how every conversation with him ended in a fight. I had to stop it now. He ignored me. Are we still going to kiss? If not, I'm going to sleep. He was so hard to please. Forget it, he said coldly. I was speechless. We were at a stalemate for a few minutes. It was unbearable. I turned on my side to coax him. Felix, I honestly think you're harder to handle than my little brother, but you're only 3 days younger than me. Who's younger than you? I was born 2 weeks past my due date, he argued. It's when you're born that counts. From now on, I'll just call you little brother. Little brother? He laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. Before I could react, he pinned me down and gave me a punishing kiss. You're really asking for it. You're the one asking for it. I'm older than you. What's wrong with you calling me big sister? Say that one more time, he threatened. I smiled. Chloe, don't take threats. Little brother. What do you want? His eyes changed instantly. He held my hands above my head. For your little brother, to serve you. The next day, I woke up at noon. He was long gone. At lunch, I was inevitably teased by his relatives. Young people these days, staying up all night and sleeping all day. They're just newlyweds, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Everyone had that we all know what's going on look on their faces. We were up late playing video games, I mumbled. Auntie, what game? Can I play? Leo looked at me with innocent eyes. You're not old enough, his mom chided. Why not? Kids shouldn't ask. The meal was a heart-pounding experience. I escaped back to my room as soon as I finished. Grandpa was very understanding and told me to go rest instead of playing chess with him. I sat in Felix's room, lost in thought. I had to go home. Even with my thick skin, I couldn't take this anymore. I started packing. I texted Felix, I'm heading back tomorrow. Is there anything you want me to bring? You're up. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're not feeling uncomfortable anywhere, are you? You said your stomach was upset yesterday. Should you see a doctor? I probably just ate something bad. I'm fine now. Okay, you rest. I'll be back tonight to pack. Okay. Feeling his gentleness, my heart suddenly warmed. Although our marriage started as a family arrangement and I had no expectations, things were starting to change in subtle ways. I started to wonder if maybe he liked me, even just a little. Otherwise, why would he be so attentive and gentle? With nothing else to do, I suddenly wanted to learn about his childhood. Can I look at your old stuff? What for? I'm bored. Go ahead. Take a nap later. So, I started rummaging through his things in the room and found a photo. It fell out of a high school literature textbook. The person in the photo was Lily. She was in her school uniform, her hair in a high ponytail, laughing and talking with the student in front of her. It was a profile shot. The person who took the photo was obviously Felix. I don't know if it was because the photo was beautiful or because it was taken by Felix, but my heart soured. Curious, I picked up the literature book and flipped through it. In the middle of one page, I found a handwritten note. Can you stop smiling at everyone else and smile at me for once? Even though I know that even if you did, it wouldn't be a real smile for me. You'd just be seeing someone else. Reading that, my heart skipped a beat. After a moment, I kept flipping. You came to find me today, did homework with me for a little while, but you kept looking at the door. I knew who you were looking for. You were looking for him. After that, I stopped doing homework with you. You even asked me why. I don't want to be someone's backup. My brother went abroad. I thought you would give up. I waited with so much hope. I asked you which college you were applying to, and you said you were going to study abroad. I knew then. I had to give up. I couldn't read anymore. I quickly closed the book. I wanted to text him, but I didn't know what to say. Was I supposed to confront him about his high school romance? That would just make me look ridiculous. After a long hesitation, I continued to read. I flipped to the last few pages. You said you would never get back with my brother. You came to me crying, saying all sorts of bad things about him. You were so hurt. I looked at you with such heartache and agreed to be your boyfriend. Then that night, you didn't text me back. I was worried all night, thinking I had scared you. But then you just smiled and said you and my brother got back together and that I should be happy for you. Graduation. Finally. I finally don't have to love you anymore. It feels so good. By the last page, I was in tears. My heart was sour, and I was angry. What kind of person was Lily? To me, it seemed she had been playing with Felix's feelings all along. Then and now. Coming to Felix for help over every little thing. Using the fact that he once loved her to take advantage of him. I called Wendy and told her everything. She was so angry she was practically pounding her chest. That two-faced snake Lily makes me so mad. How could she bully our little Felix like that? As his wife, you have to find a way to put her in her place. Take her down a peg. Spurred on by Wendy, I found Lily's number and arranged to meet her at a coffee shop for a showdown. She was wearing a white dress again, sitting quietly across from me. You want me to leave, Felix? She still looked so small and innocent. Then please go back and tell him to stop liking me. I only have feelings for his brother. He knows that. I didn't say anything, just lifted my coffee and took a small sip. Keep acting. Let's see how far she takes this. If you're here because I was in his room that morning, I can explain, she continued. I was actually there to ask for his brother's contact information. I pushed him away. We didn't do anything. I still didn't speak, just massaged my temples, a headache starting to form. Why do men fall for this type? Felix was playing the part of the devoted backup with admirable dedication. I almost wanted to give him a round of applause. Do you like him? I asked, cutting to the chase. She hesitated for a moment. No. I paused. She was more honest than I expected. So, you don't like him, but you run to him for every little thing? She bit her lip, at a loss for words. We've been good friends since we were kids. He's my best friend. Well said. I almost applauded. What a beautiful story of childhood sweethearts and the ultimate simp. You know he likes you, and you still keep him around as your backup, your little puppy. No, I just see him as a brother, she argued. I had completely lost my patience. Don't disgust me. I looked it up. You're 3 months older than him. She probably didn't expect me to be so blunt. Her face instantly turned green. How can you say that about me? Her acting skills kicked in, and tears started welling up in her eyes. It was as if one more word from me, one more look, and her tears would fall like broken pearls. You're in love with his brother, but you enjoy Felix's attention, using the good friend's excuse to do ambiguous things and treat him as a substitute. He doesn't even look like his brother, does he? Don't tell me you just fell for the same face. I never asked him to like me, she said, her tears finally falling. But you didn't reject his kindness. You gave him hope, strung him along, I said calmly. Chloe, even though you're married to him, you can't define the relationship we've had since we were kids. If he knew you were humiliating me like this, she looked up at me, crying. Huh, what a damsel. Using him to threaten me. Threaten me? Excuse me, could you get me another coffee? This one is cold, and it's making me sick, I said after a few seconds of silence, smiling at the waiter. Lily saw my relaxed demeanor and probably thought her threat had worked. She looked at me triumphantly. Oh, so you grew up together. Yes. I know how many times Felix was punished by his father as a kid, how many times he ran away from home, his first award, the first time he cried, I know everything. She said it all with a proud look on her face. I understood her subtext. Who do you think you are? You're just a marriage partner who was shoved in halfway. Felix doesn't even like you. Of course you know, I said, completely unfazed. His brother, Andrew, is stable, a top student since he was a kid, and a favorite of the old man. Felix was a troublemaker, a bad boy, always skipping class and getting into fights, with bad grades. Comparing the two, you thought Andrew had a better future, a better chance of inheriting the family business, so you chose him. But you didn't expect that while Andrew was a good student, he was only interested in scientific research. He went abroad and had no interest in the company. Instead, It was the rebellious Felix who came home after graduation, took over the family business, and expanded it to what it is today. You regret it. So you're using the excuse of looking for his brother to hang around him. I took a sip of my coffee. Do I need to continue? I was getting angry just talking about it. Thinking about those diaries written in his literature book made my heart ache for Felix. He could have any woman he wanted now. How could he still be hung up on her? It had to be just a first love complex. But she was using it as leverage to manipulate him. Using someone's genuine feelings was a cardinal sin. She stopped crying instantly, her face twisting with rage. Lily, if you want to change your fate, take a look in the mirror and see if you have what it takes. You made the wrong choice from the start. You want to take back your move now? It's too late. With that, I decided not to waste any more time on her. I stood up to leave. But she jumped up in a rage, grabbed a freshly delivered cup of coffee, and threw it at me. The coffee wasn't scalding, but I just had my hair done. In that instant, all thoughts of elegance, grace, and propriety flew out the window. I was going to kill her. I slapped her across the face. She lunged at me and grabbed my hair. We started fighting. Half an hour later, I was sitting quietly at the police station. A few of my buttons had been torn off, and I'd lost an earring. She was in worse shape. Her face was covered in my 5-fingered handprints. Her fair little face was covered in marks. My new rhinestone nails were not just for show. The police called Felix to come down. I wasn't worried at all. I need to use the restroom, I said to the officer with a smile, looking completely relaxed and happy. Then I went to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and let out a low growl. Damn it. When she pushed me, my hip hit the corner of a table. She had also scratched my back a few times, and now it was burning. I was about to cry from the pain. What made me want to cry the most was that I wasn't even a match for her. As much as I hated to admit it, I had lost the fight. It was so humiliating. After about 2 minutes of roaring in the restroom, I composed myself and went to the mirror to touch up my makeup. I was a woman of pride. I would not let Felix see me like this. When I came out, Felix was already there. He stood there, his face a thundercloud, staring at me. You were fighting? He looked at me in disbelief. Of course not, I said, my face twitching. Just a little disagreement. He looked at Lily next to me, then back at me. A little disagreement? I followed his gaze. The nail marks on Lily's face were red and swollen. I remembered just now, she didn't look that bad, did she? The air around him was thick with tension. I kept my head down and said nothing. Chloe, I told you those things because I wanted us to be honest with each other, not so you could go and take it out on someone else. He suddenly yelled at me. He yelled at me? She started it. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Her face is all scratched up. How am I supposed to explain this to my brother? He came over and checked my hands repeatedly. Where are you hurt? Was it that he couldn't explain it to his brother, or was he just worried about her himself? Such a transparent lie. Don't touch me. I was about to explode. Thinking about the diary he wrote just made me angrier. Right, she's your precious first love. You kept her photo, wrote about your love for her in your textbooks. Now she cries a little, sheds a few tears, and suddenly she's in the right. You're just worried about her, aren't you? Stop pretending to care about me. He was furious too. You read my diary? I was about to explain that he had told me I could, and that I had found it by accident. Besides, I had gone to see Lily for his sake, so he wouldn't be used anymore. Felix, please don't fight because of me. If your sister-in-law doesn't like me, I'll just leave. Lily stood up, trembling. She walked a few steps, crying, then collapsed. Lily. Felix rushed over to help her up. I stood there, my heart suddenly shattering. He helped her up, then remembered I was standing there and turned back. Get in the car. I'm taking you both to the hospital. I'm not going. You don't have to invest in a movie for me anymore. Just give the Oscar to her. I'm not as good an actress. I stood there, my fists clenched, refusing to move. Chloe, what do you want from me? Just take your sweetheart to the hospital. If you wait any longer, her wounds might heal on their own. He stared at me, then, with no other choice, he put Lily in the car and turned back to take my hand. Stop being difficult. Let's just go to the hospital and get you checked out. We don't want any lasting problems. He lowered his voice, a sign of compromise. Watching him, torn between Lily and me, I suddenly found it all so ridiculous. I wasn't his unforgettable first love. He settled her first, then remembered to take my hand. I, Chloe, didn't need such charity. I took a deep breath and forced a smile. You know, Felix. I think you're pathetic. He couldn't be cruel to Lily, which meant he was being cruel to himself. He stood there, his lips moving, but no words came out. He was completely shocked. I'm not going. I'm perfectly fine. Sorry, I don't have time to be your third wheel. I have a spa appointment. Goodbye. With that, I grabbed my bag and walked away. I packed my bags and went straight back to my dad's house. My mom asked why I was back so suddenly. We had a fight. I'm done. I locked myself in my room and refused to open the door. He didn't text or call me all night. I kept scrolling through my phone and saw Lily's social media post. Thank you for always being there, she wrote, with a picture of him talking to a doctor. The moment I saw that picture, I broke. The pain must have been really bad, because that's why I was crying. So much so that when Wendy called me, I was wailing so hard she couldn't understand a word I was saying. In the end, Wendy came over and stayed with me for the night. So, what are you going to do now? I stayed silent. You're not just going to let it go, are you? That little witch Lily, she makes me so mad. I can't believe she hit you. Wendy looked like she was ready to go to the hospital and finish Lily off. It's fine. I'm not crying because of her. I hugged my knees. You haven't actually fallen for Felix, have you? I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if you did. You've always liked his type. Of course not, I vehemently denied. But tears streamed down my face. I buried my face in my blanket and cried for a while. After a bit, Wendy gently pulled on my blanket and whispered, Felix is downstairs. Downstairs where? I asked, confused. Downstairs. Outside your house. Wendy said, peering out the window. I just saw him. I don't know how long he's been there. I stayed silent. I didn't know what Felix was trying to do. Should I let him up? Wendy asked. No. I don't want to see him. I was still furious and didn't want to hear anything. What if he's here to apologize? Felix is a big deal. For him to apologize is huge. Too late. I walked to the window, slammed it shut, and pulled the curtains. I'm divorcing him. She stroked my head, telling me not to be impulsive. You haven't even gotten your money yet. Are you just going to leave like that? I'm not sleeping with a man a second time. It's not like Felix is the only rich guy in the world. Wendy's jaw dropped. She didn't try to persuade me anymore, just snuggled under the covers and helped me strategize. Later, I fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Wendy was applying medicine to my back, and the pain woke me up. Where did you get this medicine? Felix gave it to me, she said, pointing to a ridiculously large bag of medicine on the chair. He told me to make sure I put it on you. Why did you listen to him? I'm just caught in the middle of you two, Wendy said, falling silent and just clenching her teeth as she applied the ointment. Early the next morning, Felix knocked on the door. He was still here. I smiled, opened the door, and invited him in. He handed me a folder. My heart sank. Of course. He wanted a divorce too. I was so mad. Didn't you like that townhouse? I bought it. You can go pick out the furniture when you have time. I looked at the floor plan, my resolve wavering for a second. But then I remembered the humiliation from yesterday, and my heart turned to ash. I smiled and handed him a folder of my own. Thanks for that. I also have a document here that Felix needs to sign. He took the divorce papers and his face instantly darkened. What is the meaning of this? Nothing. I'm just setting you free to be with your first love. I'm not going to fight you for her. It's not like I don't have other options. There are plenty of fish in the sea. He stood there, so angry his face turned green. Is it that guy from last time? He asked, his voice trembling. That's none of your business. So, you just used me and now you're throwing me away? Were you just playing with me this whole time? What did he mean? I got him. He's insane. Sorry, but if we go to the courthouse now, I can still make my afternoon date. Shall we, Felix? Are you sure about this? I'm sure. He stared at me, then sighed. Some other time. I'm busy right now. Then this afternoon. I'm busy this afternoon too. Then tomorrow. I'm busy tomorrow too. I was speechless. Felix, what are you trying to do? I have to go to Europe to expand the business. I won't be free for the next few months. You. He ignored me and turned to leave. Felix and I were getting a divorce, we just hadn't finalized it yet. Both our families knew. I didn't understand why he was so busy he couldn't even find time to sign the papers. I couldn't be bothered. Because Wendy and I had applied to study in the US together. Who needs a man? Focus on your career. There will be plenty of men later. I thought Wendy was right. So I spent my days studying with her and filling out applications. I had no contact with Felix. But lately, I'd been feeling really sick. You're throwing up so much. Are you pregnant? Wendy suggested. That's when it hit me. I hadn't had my period in 2 or 3 months. I'd been so busy with the fighting and the divorce, and my cycle was always irregular, so I hadn't paid attention. I bought a pregnancy test from the pharmacy. When 2 lines appeared, I was completely shocked. Damn it. After a sleepless night, I decided to have the baby. Are you sure? How are you going to raise a baby while you're studying over there? I've seen other single moms do just fine, I said, hugging her with a grin. Besides, I'll have you, right? A modern woman doesn't need a man. So, I applied to schools while dealing with morning sickness. The day I got my acceptance letter, I sold all my designer bags. Are you sure you want to do that? That one's a limited edition. I need tuition, living expenses, and money for formula, girl. You can't eat a purse. I calculated the money from selling my bags, necklaces, and diamond ring. It came to over $500,000. I was thrilled. That diamond ring was over $400,000. Felix is so loaded. It was an auction piece. I thought he got it from some street vendor. It looked so old-fashioned. If I had known it was so expensive, I would have sucked up to him and gotten him to buy me more of those old-fashioned things. When my parents found out I was getting a divorce, they nagged me for a few days about being ungrateful, but then they just left me alone. I began my life as a pregnant student in the US. I often thought about Felix. Every time I cried from morning sickness. Every time the baby kicked. Every night I couldn't sleep because of the pain. I would think to myself, if only he were here. But he probably didn't even want this child. Thinking of that, I sighed. I think I had really fallen for him. And that was tragic. Because he didn't love me, and we were divorced. At 9 months pregnant, I was walking on campus with a male classmate when I ran into Lily. I was shocked. So was she. You're pregnant? She asked, looking me up and down, her eyes fixed on my belly. Is it Felix's? I recognized the guy standing next to her. It was Felix's brother, Andrew. Was Lily doing this on purpose? I took a second to compose myself and smiled. Thanks to you, Felix and I got divorced a long time ago. Did you forget? Lily quickly grabbed Andrew's sleeve. She was panicking. What are you talking about? He dropped me off at the hospital that day and left. So where did Felix go after that? Whatever. It was all in the past. Let me introduce you. This is my new boyfriend, I said, linking arms with my American classmate, smiling brightly. Stephen. The baby's father. Lily's face went through a range of colors. Does he know? Andrew, who had been silent, asked calmly. He doesn't need to know. We were divorced. Why would I tell him? If I'm not mistaken, you're still legally married, Andrew said, his eyes on my stomach, hesitating. Your brother is so busy with his business that he's been dragging his feet on signing the papers for years. I can't be expected to wait for him forever. I was actually a little nervous. I was afraid Andrew would tell Felix about this. I was terrified he would find out I was pregnant with his child. He mentioned you when he called me the other day. Mentioned me for what? A man I hadn't seen in over half a year. After saying that, Andrew looked at me, then turned and left without another word. After they were gone, Stephen looked at me, confused. What did you guys say? He asked. I let out a sigh of relief. Thank God he didn't understand a word of Chinese, or my cover would have been blown. They said you're very handsome and they want to set you up with a girlfriend. He was ecstatic all the way back, asking me to send him all his best photos so he could get a date. He said he loved Chinese girls. I silently cursed him in my head. What an idiot. That night, Felix called me. It was the first time he'd contacted me in months. Where are you? America. On campus? No. He was silent for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, I'm here on business, passing by your school. If it's convenient. I held my breath, trying to keep my voice steady. It's not convenient. Don't bother. My water had just broken. I was dying of pain. I hear your new boyfriend is a student. What can he give you? He asked, his voice tinged with anger. I couldn't hold it in anymore and cried out in pain. Felix on the other end of the line was clearly stunned. What are you doing? He asked, his voice trembling with rage. Can't you tell? I'm on a date. Piss off. If I had known giving birth was this painful, I wouldn't have done it. Felix was the damn culprit. I wanted to tear him apart, and he was asking me what I was doing. I was so angry. Chloe, you. I hung up before he could finish. I couldn't take it anymore. It hurt so much. The doctor told me to hang in there, that I was only 2 centimeters dilated. I'd been in pain for half a day, and I was only at 2 centimeters. Wendy was by my side, holding my phone, looking at me anxiously. Are you sure you're not going to tell him? You look like you're in so much pain. I'm worried. Tell him what? I gritted my teeth in pain. He sent you a text. Let me read it to you. So, while I was delirious with pain, I listened to Wendy read his texts. Chloe, we haven't finalized the divorce. This is cheating. You won't get a penny in the divorce. What do you see in him? Not talking, huh? You really think I can't find you? Listening to it just made the pain worse. My head was pounding. He says he's coming to find you. He really thinks you're with someone else, Wendy said, reading the texts aloud. Ignore him. After struggling for half a day, the baby still wouldn't come out. I was on the verge of passing out, so they rushed me in for a C-section. The moment my mom saw me, she almost fainted. Weren't you here to study? How do you have a baby? You. Mom, it hurts. Okay, don't talk. Save your strength. Dad and I will be waiting for you outside. I don't know how long the surgery took. When I was wheeled out of the operating room, it was already dark. When I woke up, my mom was holding the baby. My dad had a stern look on his face when he saw me, but it turned into a joyful smile when he saw the baby. "This grandson is so fair and handsome," my mom said, bringing him over for me to see. "He looks just like a Chloe. That high forehead, he's going to be smart," my dad said, grinning from ear to ear. I looked at the wrinkled little face and couldn't see what was so handsome about it. Mainly, the anesthesia was wearing off, and I was in so much pain I couldn't be interested in anything. I thought having a baby would be easy. I thought he'd be born and start running, and after a few days, he'd sleep on his own, eat on his own, go to school on his own, and I wouldn't have to do anything. It was the complete opposite. Breastfeeding was agony. He bit me until I was raw. He woke up every 2 hours to eat, poop, and cry. It was a vicious cycle. I barely slept a wink. This wasn't an angel, it was a little demon. After 3 days at the postpartum center, I was depressed. During this time, I didn't answer any of Felix's calls or reply to his texts. At 3 in the morning, I was woken up again by the little brats crying. I gritted my teeth through the pain, held him, and tried to soothe him for half an hour, but he kept crying. I broke down. While the maternity nurse was trying to calm the baby, I went to the bathroom and sat on the toilet, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm so useless. I can't be a good mother. I shouldn't have been so impulsive and had him. If he cries again, I'm going to jump off a building. The thought of never being able to raise him right filled me with despair. I took out my phone, looked at Felix's number in my contacts, and just wanted to yell at him. Just then, my phone rang. It was Felix. Tears were still on my cheeks as I answered. "Chloe," he said, his voice hoarse. He sounded drunk. "See? I was having a breakdown taking care of a baby, and he was out partying. I really did this to myself." "What?" I said, trying to keep my temper in check. "Is he there with you?" "Me? What drunken nonsense was he spouting now?" "That's none of your business." "We're divorced," I reminded him. "I didn't sign the papers," he said, getting agitated. "Do you think I can't live without you? It doesn't matter anymore." He was silent for a while. I thought he would just hang up. But then his voice cracked. "Can we not get divorced? Whatever you want, I'll buy it for you, okay? The house, the bags, I'll buy them all for you. Just don't get a divorce. Even if you say it 100 more times, I'm not signing." He rambled on and on. I was honestly shocked. He didn't want a divorce? Wasn't he the one who was always trying to run off with his first love? And now he was clinging to me? What was this? Besides, I was at my breaking point, too overwhelmed to deal with his romantic drama. "Are you done? If you're done, I'm hanging up. What do I have to do to get you to talk to me?" He was really drunk. I'd never seen him drunk before. I didn't know he was so clingy. "It's not that I don't want to talk to you. I just don't have time right now." The maternity nurse had already been to my door 3 times. That little demon's mouth was either eating or crying. "What are you doing? Why won't you talk to me? Is it? Will you only talk to me if I call you big sister?" I gasped. What kind of trauma had he been through? His personality had completely changed. Before, I would have been lucky if he didn't make me call him daddy, let alone him calling me big sister. "No, Felix, calm down. I really don't have time. Big sister. Big sister." A shiver went down my spine. What was wrong with him? Just then, the baby at the door could take no more and unleashed his little universe, wailing at the top of his lungs. The other end of the line suddenly went silent. "You have a kid?" My heart dropped. "Yes, I just had a baby." "Is there anything else, Felix?" He didn't say anything. He was silent until I hung up. After hanging up, I went to hold the baby, my head throbbing. The maternity nurse and I took turns trying to soothe him. Finally, as dawn was breaking, we got him to settle down. Once the baby was asleep, I finally managed to close my eyes for a bit. In that short time, I had a dream. In the dream, I opened my eyes and the baby wasn't in his crib. His little blanket was on the windowsill. I crawled over and saw him lying in the flower bed below. I ran down at top speed, picked him up, and his little hands and feet were cold. He wasn't breathing. The moment I stood on the rooftop, someone shook me awake. "Chloe, he's here." I opened my eyes and saw my mom. "Who?" "Felix." "Felix?" I was stunned. I grabbed my mom's arm. "What's he doing here?" I admit, I was nervous. And I had just had a nightmare. Tears were still on my face. It had been 5 days since I left the hospital. I hadn't showered or washed my hair, and I was in my pajamas, looking like a complete mess. I absolutely did not want him to see me like this. "Be honest with me. Is this child his?" My mom whispered. "Yes," I finally admitted. "So get him out of here. What if he tries to fight me for custody? Are you crazy? Do you think you can handle this all by yourself? The nurse said you barely slept at all last night. It breaks my heart to see you like this. Raising a child takes 2 people. He came all this way to find you. It's clear he can't let you go. You can't just refuse to give in forever. No matter what happens, you had this child. Why should he get away with not helping to raise him?" My mom tried to reason with me. But I didn't think it was a good idea. Felix was a rich kid who had probably never set foot in a kitchen. Him taking care of a baby? Unimaginable. The next second, there was a knock on the door. "It's me. Can I come in?" It was Felix. My mom gave me a look, signaling me to talk to him properly. I didn't want to listen. When Felix came in, he looked shocked. He just stood there, looking like he was still drunk from the night before. "See? I told you I was busy." Since I was already a mess, I gave up trying and just went with it. "Whose child is it?" he asked, walking closer. He reached out and pulled back a corner of the baby's blanket, staring for a long time. "Not yours," I said, turning my face away, not wanting to look at him. All the suffering I was going through was his fault. And he had the nerve to ask me that. "Not mine?" He seemed to be suppressing some emotion as he carefully covered the baby back up. "If I'm not mistaken, when you got pregnant, you hadn't started talking about divorce yet. So what? Can't I go find someone else?" "You can, but I can't." I looked up at him. A flicker of emotion crossed his eyes. After a few seconds, he suddenly sat down next to me. I could clearly smell the alcohol on him. How much did he drink? The due date was June 6th. "The week you got pregnant, you were at my hotel on my business trip. You were very eager that night, and I didn't. How long are you going to lie to me?" My heart dropped. Wasn't he drunk? How was his mind so clear? "The child is mine, Felix. Don't even think about fighting me for him," I declared. He looked at me and smiled, his eyes welling up with tears. "Who's going to fight you?" I let out a sigh of relief. "I'm not leaving. I'll have the driver bring my things over." This was my house, and he was planning on squatting? "In your dreams." I couldn't believe how shameless he was. He reached out and stroked my head. "I'm going to go wash up first. I smell like alcohol. Mind if I use your bathroom?" He said it while pulling off his tie and heading to the shower. I was dumbfounded. 10 minutes later, he came out wearing my bathrobe. "Your hair is a mess, and you haven't washed your face. This isn't like you," he said, bringing a towel over to wipe my face. "So what if it isn't?" "Don't touch me." I dodged him. He grabbed me, looking at me with an annoyed expression. "What do you take me for? You just had a baby. I'm not that much of a monster." You. I was at a loss for words. When he tried to comb my hair, I immediately refused. But he insisted. I sighed. It's really dirty. I haven't washed it in a week. It was oily and tangled. To be honest, I was disgusted with myself. It's not dirty, he said so seriously I almost believed him. After he combed my hair, he went to the bathroom. If it's not dirty, why are you washing your hands? See? He was disgusted with me. I was depressed. I'm not disgusted with you. I'm going to hold the baby, he said helplessly, pointing to the little demon who had just opened his eyes. The little demon seemed particularly curious about this drunkard. He wasn't crying or fussing, just staring at him with wide eyes. Hey, little guy. I'm your daddy, he said, bending down and gently picking up the baby. Who said you were? I was really fed up with him. He did, he said with a smile, pointing to the baby in his arms. He's smiling. I looked at the little demon who had been crying his eyes out just a few minutes ago, now cooing and smiling in his arms. The scene was both heartwarming and infuriating. Of course, men were unreliable. Even at this age, he knew how to side with the scumbag. They were partners in crime. But even though I was angry, seeing the baby smile made me start to cry. Felix was teasing the baby, but when he saw me crying, he panicked. What's wrong? He asked, holding the baby and coming closer. Nothing. I didn't even know why I was crying. Maybe because being pregnant was so hard. And giving birth was so painful. And the baby was so difficult to take care of. But then he came, and the baby suddenly became obedient. It was as if a ray of sunlight had suddenly pierced through my despair. It was so bright it made me cry. If it's nothing, why are you crying? He kept asking. It's my sad girl hour. Am I not allowed? I pulled the covers over my head and sobbed. It was quiet outside the blanket for a moment. Then the maternity nurse came in and took the baby out. I thought he had left too. I pulled back the covers and saw him. He was sitting quietly on the edge of the bed, staring at me intently. So why didn't you tell me sooner? Tell you what? So you could tell me to get an abortion? I retorted. His face instantly darkened. Is that what you think of me? You think I, Felix, would let my own woman get rid of our child? You have so many women. If you want a child, plenty of them would have one for you. His face grew even darker. After a few seconds, he said in a low voice, I've never been with anyone else but you. Never been with anyone else? I was truly shocked. Remembering that night, he was so good at it, I thought he was a seasoned veteran. Who are you kidding? He looked down at me and lowered his voice. Do you have a conscience? I was in so much pain that night I couldn't sleep. My heart skipped a beat. I almost believed him. He couldn't sleep, so he decided to keep me up too. Felix, have you no shame? Sometimes, no, he said, holding my face and leaning in to kiss me. I was caught off guard by his sudden kiss. His arms held me tightly as he kissed me softly. I'm sorry. I came too late. He held me, comforting me over and over. I found myself sinking into his gentleness. My resolve to ignore him melted away. It felt like everything was falling apart, spiraling out of control. I didn't know what I was doing. Felix stayed with me. He changed the baby's diapers every day, rocked him to sleep, and after putting the baby down, he would come and talk to me. But I was conflicted. My mom tried to persuade me, Felix has stopped going to the office to stay here and take care of you and the baby. You finally made it through the hard part. You can tell he still loves you. You too should give it another try. No matter how much she tried to convince me, there was always a knot in my heart. One moment, I was full of hope for our days together. The next, I was worried it was all just a fleeting dream, that he would leave as soon as he got a text from someone else. So I remained cold toward him. When the maternity nurse brought the baby over, Felix took him. Go make some formula. Let Chloe rest. Breastfeeding is better for the baby. Yes, it'll boost his immune system. My mom and the nurse said in unison. She's not in a good state right now. She needs more rest, he insisted. The baby isn't everything. She's more important. He sent the nurse and my mom out of the room and took care of me and the baby himself. I watched him expertly change diapers, then make formula, then soothe the baby, then feed him. He had gone from fumbling and clumsy to a complete pro. After settling the baby, he came over to massage my legs, encouraging me to move around more. Aren't you tired? I asked him. I didn't know where he got the energy. He had barely slept this whole week. The dark circles under his eyes were getting more and more noticeable. Not tired, he said, continuing the massage. I'm tired. He paused. If you're tired, then rest. I'm right here. What's wrong? He asked, panicked, when he saw my tears. I don't understand why I had a baby, I said, lying there, tears streaming down my face. He bent down and held me for a long time. It's my fault. Let's not have any more, okay? Any more? What any more was there? I think I had postpartum depression. Later, my mom told me that Lily and Andrew had broken up for good because Andrew got engaged, and the bride wasn't her. That brother of his is ruthless. The girl followed him all the way to America to study, and he just got engaged to someone else. Felix is the reliable one. These past few days, I've seen him take care of you and the baby with his own hands. He really cares about you. I was filled with worry. Reliable? What reliable? Now that Lily was completely out of the picture with Andrew, I was terrified she would come back for Felix. Felix was busy making formula. I tried to hold the baby, but the moment he was in my arms, he started wailing. I couldn't soothe him no matter what I did. I suddenly felt so sad. Just take the baby. I won't fight you for him. You're better at taking care of him. He doesn't even want my milk anymore. I feel useless. He stared at me without speaking, just continued to massage my legs, trying to get me to relax. Just rest. Don't overthink things. I'm serious. Since Lily finally broke up with your brother, you must have finally gotten your chance. He froze. Don't bring up other people. It has nothing to do with me. Don't worry about me. What if I'm like this forever? What if I never get better? I sighed. They say postpartum depression is hard to recover from. My emotions were so volatile. I didn't know how or if I could get better. Why do you keep pushing me away? He suddenly burst out. The usually calm and composed him had red-rimmed eyes. I don't want anyone's pity. I can live just fine on my own. Of course you can live just fine, he muttered, helping me fix my clothes. You can flip out on me the day after we sleep together, demanding things, and ignoring me if I don't give them to you. You can go weeks without talking to me, only reaching out when you want money. You can be pregnant with my child and be laughing with other men, leaving me to have sleepless nights. See? You can live just fine on your own. I'm the only one who's not okay. I flew to the US once a week just to see you in secret, to get news about you, and every time, I heard you were with some other guy. What am I? Chloe, tell me, what am I? He rambled on and on, finally sitting on the edge of the bed, crying silently. I was stunned. Didn't you love her? I cried too. I was pregnant, I fought with her, and I was in so much pain that day. What did you do? You took her to the hospital. Yes, I'm greedy. You think I only love you for your money, I sniffled. I even think I'm crazy. So obsessed with money, yet I divorced someone as rich as you. Am I insane? I'm sorry, he composed himself, came over to hold me, and leaned in to kiss me. I admit I had feelings for her, but that was in high school. I don't even know if it was real love or just a habit. But then I met you, and I couldn't get anyone else out of my head. But every time you were sweet to me, you'd ask me to buy you something. I couldn't tell if you really loved me or if you were just using me. I was so angry, so I did a lot of things that hurt you. I'm sorry. Don't cry. It breaks my heart to see you cry. He kissed me for a long, long time, until the baby next to us woke up and started wailing. Only then did he reluctantly let me go and pick up the baby to soothe him. Let's be good to each other from now on, okay? My heart was pounding, my mind a mess. He continued to stay and take care of me and the baby. He slept with me every night, holding the baby with one arm and my hand with the other. A month passed like this. My condition gradually improved. The baby didn't cry as much and didn't get sick as often. Life suddenly got better. After my postpartum recovery, he would take the baby out in the stroller every day, hold my hand, and we would walk in the park. He would talk to me for hours. He seemed to have endless energy. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't moved. But one day, while walking in the park, we ran into Lily. Or rather, it seemed Lily was waiting for us there. At that moment, I felt a surge of annoyance. I just wanted to take the baby and leave. You two talk. But Felix grabbed my hand and wouldn't let me go. Why are you going alone? The baby's getting heavy. You won't be able to carry him in a bit. He's only 10 pounds. He was underestimating me. You just finished your recovery. The doctor said you shouldn't lift heavy things, he said, picking up the baby and cooing at him. Felix, Lily said, her jaw dropping at the scene, her face pale. Your brother got engaged to someone else. Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. Yeah, I know, Felix said calmly. I stood to the side, feeling awkward. Can you? No, Felix cut her off. Sorry, I have to take care of the baby. If there's nothing else, please don't contact me again. Why? Lily's face turned green. Are you going to ignore me too? Felix gave her a cold look. Before, you were my brother's girlfriend. I helped you out of respect for him. Now that you're not, why should I help you? His tone was icy. I saw Lily swaying, so angry she could barely stand. Felix, she sobbed, completely heartbroken. I almost felt sorry for her. Don't call me that anymore, Felix said coldly. Why? My wife doesn't like it, he said, wrapping his arm around me. So good at passing the blame. Not giving Lily any more time, Felix held me, carried the baby, and walked away. To be honest, Lily's situation was pretty tragic. She had chased Andrew for so many years, all the way to America, only for him to marry someone else. You don't have to put on a show for me. You two have known each other for a long time. I sighed, looking at Felix. It's not a show. I'm whipped, he said lazily. Nonsense. When have I ever controlled you? I said, then realized, when did I say I wanted to remarry you? So you're not going to remarry me? He sighed. What if I promise to do whatever you say? No. Then don't hit me in the face. Hilarious. Not a chance. I, Chloe, never admit defeat. 5 months later. Felix called to say he was out for a business meeting and would be back late. Late was fine. I had class. When I got home, my mom told me she had taken the baby to her place. Why didn't you tell me sooner? It was a last-minute decision. Just get some rest for a couple of days. Rest? What rest? As soon as I turned on the light, I saw that the floor was covered in roses. I had a feeling in my gut. My heart started to race. I followed the trail of roses into the bedroom. In the bedroom, Felix was wearing a bathrobe, looking like he had just showered. His hair was still dripping as he sat casually on the sofa. What are you doing? He gave me a lazy look. Is it that hard to guess? It's my birthday today. Oh. Your birthday? I had completely forgotten. Should I order a cake? You already forgot. What's the point of ordering a cake? I'll remember next time for sure, I said, making empty promises. Uh-huh. And? He asked, slowly approaching me, a keep talking, I'm listening look on his face. I can cook you a bowl of longevity noodles? I took 2 pathetic steps back. Why are you hiding? He asked, amused. I'm not hiding, it's just, we were so close I could clearly see his jawline, his Adam's apple, and then I couldn't help but swallow. Haven't even cooked me noodles yet, and you're already hungry? He teased. No. I took another step back in fear. The truth was, for the past 6 months, besides the occasional kiss, we hadn't done anything. Even when we slept together, we were so exhausted from the baby that we didn't have the energy for anything else. But now, with the romantic atmosphere, my heart started to pound wildly. Really? He asked, taking my hand and placing it on his abs. Doesn't feel like it. I really wanted to stay calm. Don't hold back, he said, looking down at me. You know I'm always at your command, big sister. That big sister sent my blood pressure skyrocketing. I couldn't think straight. Felix, didn't you say I was only a few days older than you? I like it. Okay, all my defenses crumbled. Faced with a handsome, well-built man who was also my husband, it would be a waste not to take advantage. I boldly kissed him on the cheek. He smiled with satisfaction. You like it when I call you that? He asked, leaning in to kiss me. Can you not talk? My heart was beating too fast. Fine. Whatever you say, big sister. He smiled wantonly. I was going to lose my mind. In the middle of it, he turned his head away. Will you still be responsible for me in the morning? Of course. I was already too far gone. I would have agreed to anything. So, will you remarry me? This damn man. He was using this to force my hand. I looked at his 8-pack abs and nodded tearfully. This time, he didn't wait, kissing me again and taking control. The next morning, I couldn't get out of bed. But he was up early, playing a recording for me. You said it last night. No take-backs. I listened to the evidence of my crime on the recording and cursed myself for being so careless and getting played. Felix, you were calling me hubby last night. You wake up and you're already trying to back out? My face was beet red. In that case, I don't mind giving myself to you again. And again. Enough. Stop talking. He looked at me with a meaningful expression. You want me to be a mute? Your tastes are certainly unique, big sister. Felix. Call me hubby. Hubby. Baby, he said, leaning down to kiss me. I love you. So, getting out of bed was delayed again and again, until my mom came back with the baby in the afternoon. At dinner, my mom whispered to me, Did you two get remarried? I don't think so, I said, not very confident. Right. You went through pregnancy and childbirth all by yourself. You can't forgive him that easily, my mom said indignantly. Just then, Felix glanced over. My mom immediately shut up. He looked at me thoughtfully, then walked over. Mom, that limited edition Hermes bag you mentioned? I had someone buy it for you. Should I have it sent over this afternoon? Oh. My son-in-law is the best. My mom's face was about to crack from smiling so much. So, Mom, about me and Chloe. Felix hinted. Oh, Chloe, your baby's dad works so hard to make money. Don't cause trouble. Your remarriage, wait, you never even got divorced. Let's not talk about it. Mom, didn't you just say, I was suddenly all alone? Did I say something just now? No, my mom said, switching sides in a flash. Felix, dear, is that bag coming this afternoon? I'll have it sent over right now, Felix said, shooting me a triumphant look. My mom couldn't care less about me and ran out to wait for her bag. Felix walked over, wrapped his arm around my waist, and rested his chin on my forehead. Still want to resist? All you know how to do is bribe my mom with money. Why don't you bribe me? I was truly speechless. Do I need money to bribe you? He asked with a smile. Isn't giving you me enough? Not enough. I wanted money. Are you silly? Once you have me, isn't my money all yours? Really? When have I ever lied to you? You've lied to me plenty of times. I was about to push him away, but he seemed to remember something and suddenly laughed. Except for last night, of course. He had some nerve. Last night at 1, he told me we were going to sleep soon. At 3, it was still the same line, he didn't even change the words. That wasn't a lie last night. That was a white lie. Get lost. Big sister. Get lost, don't call me that. Big sister. You're so annoying. When are you going on a business trip? I was at my wit's end with his pestering. You want me to go on a business trip? What do you mean by that? He said, getting upset again. To work hard and provide for the baby, what else could I mean? No need. We have enough to have 10 more. Such a big spender. 2 years later. I stormed into his office and threw a pregnancy test on his desk. Felix, explain this. Didn't you say we weren't having any more? He looked grave, his long fingers holding the test, lost in thought. Your birthday? He asked. How should I know? I said, exasperated. As a gift, I didn't move, he said with a helpless smile. My heart sank. This man was shameless. Anyway, I don't want to have another one. He looked up and tried to coax me with a smile. Next life I'll have 10 for you, okay, honey? I'd believe that when pigs fly. I was determined not to have another one, but that damn man bought me bags and a villa that night, and whispered sweet nothings to me all evening. I didn't want to have another one either, but he just gave me too much. Fine, just one last one. Half a month later, I hadn't gone crazy, but someone else had. Chloe, no more third babies. I don't want to be a widower for another year. He was clinging to the doorframe, looking pitiful. You brought this on yourself, I said, about to close the door on him. He stuck his hand out, not giving up. Can't I just sleep next to you? We don't have to do anything. No, you'll disturb my sleep. He was getting agitated. Not letting your husband sleep in the room? This is a new form of domestic abuse. So, do you want to have a third baby or not? I teased him. Don't even think about it. He said, resentfully grabbing his blanket and heading to the guest room. I heard someone went to get a vasectomy the next day. Serves him right.